Afternoon, everyone joining us. Nice to see you. Chris, afternoon. Christian, Leah, Sarah, good to see you. Thank you for joining us. Sorry to pull you away from the sun. It's absolutely boiling in Manchester. I don't know about you, Andy.
Yeah, up in Clitheroe, we've got the sunshine. Flags are out.
Yeah. Phil?
Clear blue skies.
Yeah.
Terrible timing. So we won't waste any time. We'll get underway. For those of you who haven't joined us on a BASRaT webinar before, my name's Ollie Coburn. I'm part of the leadership team at BASRaT. So thank you very much for joining us in the latest of our webinar series. I hope you'll join us again for some future ones. As you know, we utilise the Q&A function when we're doing these things. So if you do have a question, especially today, if you've got a question about your business, please post it. If you're sitting on the fence about asking your own question, you can have a look at everybody else's and you can upvote them. So if you give a question a thumbs up, it'll bump it up my list and it'll tell me that it's a nice, popular question for me to be asking Andy and Phil. I'm going to let our guests introduce themselves, but as a very, very brief introduction, Andy and Phil are from Elevate Your Clinic. They are business leaders. They offer a range of business services, business advice for our sector. And Andy particularly has been very, very helpful to me in the past. He's a rehab graduate, so he knows what we're all about. He's also a physiotherapist, runs Summit Physiotherapy, which is a very successful clinic up in the Northwest. He's got some GSRs, physios, real multidisciplinary team up there. And Andy's been very generous with his time both today and in the past. Really appreciate him joining us. Andy, I'll throw it to you. Do you want to introduce yourself, mate, and let everybody know what you're all about?
Yeah, cheers, Ollie, and thanks for having us on. We love doing these things, so it's always a pleasure to share what we do and offering help and support. So, yeah, thanks again, and thanks for all of you that are watching. Yeah, so like Ollie said, I am originally started my therapy world as a sports rehab student, and actually that's where my career started. I then progressed through and did physio. Very fortunate that I started my private practice quite early on. I actually bought it off my old boss, grew it to a really nice level, and I made a really successful business. And then I guess the long short story, I made a transition 5-6 years ago into consultancy, where I spent a lot of the time traveling the world, talking at a couple of world conferences, nothing big, Ollie, basically. And I've got a real good insight into, how people in the world, how their MSK mainly businesses ran. So I've got a really global world view of that, which is fantastic. And then 3 years ago, after doing some consultancy, we chose to set up our own thing, really, because there was a huge demand for it. Having spent years paying lots of money to consultants that didn't understand our industry, I'd spend 4 hours trying to explain to them that we couldn't just triple our prices on day one and expect to have a successful business, or we couldn't just make people come back 50 times a year. And, so what we set about the Elevate was set up just trying to give some really good, sensible, honest advice to help people in an industry that we know is challenging.
Yeah, I think that's certainly been my experience of working with you as well, Andy, is that you're not, there's no false promises, there's no over salesmanship. It's, really ethical, reliable business advice about how to set up a business that is, of course, profitable and can survive the market, but is also, ultimately there to help patients as well, which is really the important thing.
But the principle is Phil said it when we were talking today, but on another chat, that I'm a clinician at heart, and that's fundamentally where I've always sit. And the nice thing for me is that, clinically, I'm still very clinically driven in what I believe and what businesses that we work with. That has to be the underpinning of everything, doesn't it? So if it's not clinically based and it's not evidence based, and it's not clinically sound, then you've got a business that's going to fail anyway because customers won't come back.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a pretty last minute addition to the podcast, so to the webinar. So sorry to miss you off all the promo, Phil. But do you want to let everyone know your background and your expertise?
Yeah, sure, Ollie. Thank you. I'll do that in short order, and hi to everybody that's on the webinar. So I'm Phil Badley. I work as a business partner with Andy. We met probably 7 or 8 years ago on a development program. My background is in corporate world originally, passionate about customers, passionate about developing organizations and leaders. So that's where we kind of come together. So 18 months ago, I knew nothing at all about therapy businesses other than as a visitor with a broken shoulder or a dodgy knee, which Andy still looks after for me. And what we bring is that contrast. So for me, it's it's Andy's passion about getting the technical aspects of business right, but also a focus and a fascination on customer experience, which is where we overlap in terms of our passion. But for me, a lot of us kind of carry fear and self-doubt around. Maybe we're trying to grow our businesses. We're kind of worried about how things fit together. How will we be as a leader? We might be brilliant clinicians, but actually, how on earth do you do this stuff? And that's my fascination and passion. So the link we've got is kind of how do we gel that together? And in a Ron Seal way, kind of just sell it as it is. So we don't like to jazz stuff up too much. We just kind of have some kind of meaty northern content that we're willing to share. So that's kind of me in a nutshell, I suppose, Ollie. And happy to be here at short notice and hopefully contribute to your lively and interesting debate over the next 45 minutes or so.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Phil. I mean, some meaty northern content is always good. And it's really nice to have a out and out business expert in the room as well, because I don't know how many times we've said, Andy, but a lot of therapists in our industry, no matter what background from, traditionally aren't the best business people, are they? So
no, but I think that's and it's something which and I understand it from an undergraduate level. There's only so much you can coach somebody, can't you? And at the end of the day, and there's no point, like we've said, there's no point having a business if you haven't got if you're not a good clinician, or you don't understand how to recruit a good clinician, and you can't see a good clinician. So I think fundamentally, our industry, you kind of either got to do that. Now, that's what we're trying to do to help, plug that gap, in the sense of that, there are some fantastic clinicians and some very entrepreneurial ones. And, and the problem is that, having been that one that is wasted. I mean, God knows how many. Me and Adam who's my business partner in Summit, tried to count it one day over a beer how much tens of thousands of pounds we'd probably thrown away on trying to wing it and have a go without really understanding the principles. And I think we see too much of that, Ollie, if I'm honest. There's too much people that there's also some really bad advice out there, and there's some really, and there's some real things of, there's too many quick fixes. And I think, so the nice thing is, I think realistically, again, there's some really simple things and some really simple processes that you can do in a business that can make a very, very effective therapy business, really, can't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, just another reminder on the questions that we're not going to have we will have a bit of a dedicated Q&A time at the end, but if you've got stuff as we go along through today, and a convenient time to pick it up presents itself, then we will do. So if you have a question, chuck it in straight away. Let's dive in, Andy. Our new COVID world, and being a therapy business owner. What's the experience been, and what have the challenges been with Summit?
So I think very similar to everybody. I think that, initially it was the fact of, what's it going to hold? I mean, the first thing we did was got all the staff together and just have really honest conversations with everybody and just say, look, this is the situation, everyone go home. At the time it was dead hot and sunny, wasn't it? So everyone was quite happy with the fact that we'd go home, we're going to furlough everyone, just go and put your feet up and to do. And to be honest with you all, it was one of those situations where, you don't have a choice, so you just have to accept it. I think at the early stage, one of the big things we then we then all realised that we had a massive duty to care to our customers, and that meant that we have to, I think the hardest part of the early stage was that we halfway through a treatment journey with somebody, and we had to then, still support them in an unfamiliar way. And I think there was the unfamiliarity of, jumping on Zoom calls and telephone calls and trying to give people exercise cues via all this and stuff.
Yeah.
But do you know what? Everyone adapted. I think customers adapted. We actually probably found that customers were almost more grateful that we were, we couldn't do what we wanted to do with them in clinic, but we were going out of our way to make sure we were checking in with them. We were making sure that they were all happy. We were doing everything we could to progress them and still look after them. And, the general feeling was that everyone around us, we're very happy with that. We were still there and supporting them and quite appreciative.
Where are you up to now with Summit? So we've changed a little bit in terms of the guidance that's out there across the board. Government are relaxing social distancing somewhat, and where are you at with it all now?
Well, fundamentally, so there's the two levels of this. So personally from Summit, because all our clinics are gym based, we're being held shut in the basis that we can't get access to premises.
Yeah.
One did say we could open up, not a problem, but we just wouldn't be able to bring customers in. So on that basis which is okay, I get it.
An expensive hot desk for the day.
Well, exactly. So we chose that we weren't gonna do with that, and as at the moment in time, I think we're constantly renewing. Obviously, we have ordered all of our PPE, and we are on board with that in the sense of in accordance with all the guidelines. And we're going, so we're making it all ready. I think the next probable date is the 4th of July. I think realistically that will be an opening. But again, our hands are tied with that, really. Now, what I can do, if it's helpful to everybody listening, obviously what me and Phil, because of our work with the Elevate Group, our network of clinics throughout the UK, and because of those independent ones, we are still familiar with a lot of people opening up, and especially in the physio, have opened up now and are doing face-to-face appointments. And I think the key thing with that is that, I still think we're very new to the challenges that people will face. I think everyone's doing the best they can, and I think and there's some things I can say on camera that people are doing, and some things I definitely can't because I don't agree with, and I won't go into that. But so I think the majority of people I'm very aware of that people are being very, very sensible in their return, that they're making sure that they are allowing a safe environment for their customers. Because to return in, fundamentally, it's about trust, isn't it? We build our brand as any company and any therapist on, you've got to trust us to look after your body and give you the best advice. And I think, and I'm sure we're going to move on to this as the discussion goes on, but I think fundamentally that's got to be there, hasn't it? There's got to be a level of trust. We sent out surveys to all our customers and basically said, what do you expect from us? How do you, what would you want from us when we open up? And we asked some very frank and honest questions. What do you expect us to be in? And again, to sit in with my kind of informal, not so serious chat, I'll tell you some brilliant responses. Firstly, the fact of when they wrote the questionnaire, they wrote, do you expect us to be in face mask? Do you expect us to be in an apron? Do you expect us to wear gloves? Or do you expect us to be in nothing?
I can see where this is going.
Of which I got a few messages straight away to say, are you changing your services now, kind of thing. So, but in my world, at least people were responding and reading it all. That's you can find the positive in that. And I think generally people appreciated that we had taken the time to reach out to ask them those questions. We got some people that were very honest and said, look, I don't want to wear PPE and I won't be coming back if you do. Yeah. So then I think the decision's got to be then is, as a business, what do you feel comfortable doing? And what do you feel is the safety of your staff? And you set your rules, don't you? I think in that case, you've got to you know, and I've always advocated and will continue to advocate. I think we've got to go over the top rather than take, if that makes sense. I think we've got to be more.
It's a good part of that exercise in building trust. And I think the survey thing's really important as well for the same reason, because people need to, you know, believe that they've had an input into what's going on and they're not just being dictated to. For anyone that's not done that yet, or is sitting on the fence or is considering doing it, how did you format that survey?
So very dead simple, because we speak to our, you know, we're very, and something I encourage everybody to do. You know, as a business, we send out newsletters every 2 weeks to our customers, just basically useful hints and tips. And we've continued to do that during the lockdown process, that we're always continuing communicating with customers. That's kind of our part and parcel of what we do. We like that relationship with them, so we're continuing doing that. So we just dropped a survey in. It was dead simple. It was actually a MailChimp survey, and we just asked some really, really nice questions. In fact, some of the questions we actually, in our own little network, we kind of had a discussion over what were the best questions that we could ask as business owners. And so we've all done similar things, if that makes sense. So, and I'm dead happy to share that. So if there's, I'm not like, that's the other thing with me is if I've got it and you want to use it, just, you know, either ask you or ask me and I'll just send it to you.
Yeah.
I've got no airs and graces on that.
Which is good. And what were the common themes? I mean, you don't need to give us like the, you know, the minor details and all the stats, but what's the general feeling out there?
General feeling was, I would say, in total, again, in the whole population or just with Summit?
With your survey?
With our survey was the majority of people would be happy to return and would be happy to return in some level of PPE, whatever they felt was the right thing to do. So the majority of people were happy to come back if they felt it was clinically relevant.
Which is great, because I think that's a lot of people's worry, isn't it? That customer bases won't return to the same level. So if anything as well, that survey is a good exercise in understanding your customers, but also in trying to plan for you in a business sense moving forward about, you know, what you're going to have coming through the door.
I think the only thing to state with clarity and honesty on that is probably the people that didn't fill the survey or didn't complete it were the ones that wouldn't anyway.
Yeah.
So that was 50% of the return rate. You know, our return rate wasn't, you know, it was probably about a third or a quarter of our customer base. So, right. You know, realistically, you know, I would argue that if we opened tomorrow, we would probably be 10% full. And yeah. I think that's still a reality. And also, you've got to remember that most of our customers base we've fixed and aren't injured and don't need us. So that's the other factor, isn't it? You know, there's another factor that people only realise they need help when they've got pain and injury. And if they haven't got pain or injury, then they kind of just, you're just a luxury, aren't you?
And how much of your business do you think is going to stay virtual moving forward? Long term? Yeah.
I don't know, you know, I think it's a really good question and a really good debate. And it's something that because we've continued to do team training every week with our team, and it's something that we discuss a lot. I definitely think initially it's going to be part of our screening process, and we'll also offer it in as something like you, or we get customers who travel long distances to come and see us, you know, and it's one of those things where, you know, people don't want to be traveling 100 miles sometimes if we can just do something virtually. So I think it's something which there's definitely the option. It's definitely something we're considering. And like everything, I think we just try and test it, don't you, to see what works. Is there a question?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it was a question. Someone asking for your survey. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Andy, it's okay.
I don't know if you can post a link in the chat whenever you get a chance, but I'm sure everyone will appreciate that.
I would.
That's unlikely, Ollie.
Technophobe, are you, Andy?
I would say that I would like to say the answer to that is I'd love to, guys. What I'm more likely to do is send it to Ollie, post this, and they'll. If it's all right, he can share it, because the likelihood is I'm more likely to leave the meeting than post it in the right group.
What I'll do for everyone, Andy, if you can send me that link kind of straight after our webinar, I'll put it on the post attendee email, so everyone will get that link tomorrow.
Ollie, if I can, just to add a couple of dimensions to Andy's point from the outside in piece, two quick pieces of data from a consumer point of view, really. The first is we, as a family, who had occasion to need to connect with the doctor in the last 3 or 4 weeks, and were delighted to find that actually we could get a telehealth option. So just by sending a photograph and getting an online conversation with the doctor, we could get the issue sorted and the medication provided. So there's a kind of a different way of application, which is kind of connected with what I know Andy and many of your colleagues will be doing around telehealth. The second is, which I won't go into in too much detail, but I'm a bit of a petrol head, so I love motorbikes. But I was saying to Andy earlier on, my local dealer actually has sent out a video. So he's given you a store walk and told you exactly what's going to happen when you visit, how you can get your bike serviced, how you can do contactless connection. And that certainly gave me kind of a real sense of, oh, okay, I'd actually feel more likely to go now, because actually he's taken the time to give me a store walk and show me how it works. So Andy and I were talking about that there's potentially another level here of actually showing existing customers or new customers what we're doing in the interim to make life safe for you. And that might be an important development.
I think that's such a great point. You know, it's those visual things are so important for people, and if they can actually see how things are going to be different rather than just trying to interpret whatever email they get from you, you know, I think that's really powerful.
I think it comes down to, you know, look, my whole philosophy on business always is that there has to be clarity in what you do with your customers. And, you know, to kind of jump a step, I think this is a perfect opportunity for everyone who's listening who has got their own private practice to stop, look at the business and go, how do I interact with customers? How do I interact with my clients anyway? Because at the end of the day, this is all going to force you to do it better. Yeah. You know, what COVID-19 has driven everyone to do is stop, look at their business, analyze everything of going, how do I interact with everybody? What are all the touch points I need to do in my business? And how can I improve them? So if anything, you know, as much as this has been a financial challenge for many businesses, it's also given everybody the opportunity to look at it and go from a customer perspective, what's that experience look like? And like Phil said there is, you know, we have a video that runs you through your business to what it looks like. And we were actually starting to film a load of new stuff about, you know, because we like a bit of a gadget like you, don't we? We've got hyperbaric oxygen chambers and we've got all force plates and like not as fancy as your treadmill, but you know, it's like one of those things. We've got all those kind of things. So we were already filming pre this, you know, what those services look like, what would that experience look like. So I think what Phil was saying there is ideal, that, you know, if you can be setting or pre-framing that so a customer, you know, so you're almost starting to go, actually, these guys are going above and beyond and I can visually see it, then the likelihood is people are going to come back in. And I think the last thing we ever want to do as a business is affect our reputation because we've been a bit sloppy. And I think, you know, most people now are already on high alert, aren't they? You know, so I think that the nice thing with being on high alert is that we're all going to be very, very vigilant to that, what that pathway looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to take one question just because it's there. We weren't going to touch too much on PPE and things like that today, but there is a question on it. If there's any confusion from anybody, because you'll be taking advice from different places, Public Health England, use their advice. They're updating it regularly. Go there; it's the most official place. So I'll kill that one. To bust it wide open a little bit, put you both on the spot. So we've got things like surveys. We've got you know, videos and creating a bit of a visual journey for our customers of what things are going to look like. What else should people? And this is from a business sense, so we're not talking risk assessment, PPE, infection control, all that jazz. Purely business, what should people be doing right now to ensure that, you know, they can, one, still be working, and they, two, have a successful reopening? So
I'll start, Phil, because you said I'd set the challenging questions on, you said.
I can add something.
Brilliant, I like that. So now it is just that what Well, the worst comment I ever heard when I spoke to somebody when it shut down, I said, right, that's it. I'm not doing anything for 3 months. And I just went, oh my gosh, no, that's like the worst thing in the world to do. So I think number one is that you have to keep that constant conversation and communication, and you can finding the right ways to do that with your customers. I think you've also got to think about, you know, now is the time to really, I mean, I've redesigned the whole Summit website in this time. I've had the whole new redesign and built because it wasn't performing like I wanted it to perform. So I took the time going, well, let's get it rebuilt. Let's get it all redone and we'll go live. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I think a lot of it is, and to use a very, very cheesy saying, sorry, everybody, but this is the time to work on your business, innit? So the fact being is that, you know, if you have a good business and you already have a good customer base, they will return. Okay? They might not return immediately. They might not return in a month, but they will all be back. Okay? I think that's the reality of it, that, you know, if you've got a good business, people are going to want to return to you, and they're going to want to. So, and what happens then is you're going to be overwhelmed and stuck in the kind of hamster wheel that most people therapists get into. They're working all the time, and you've got all those little issues going on in your business that you've not done. So this is the perfect opportunity, even if it is for another 4 weeks, to really analyze all the things that you need to do that you haven't done very, very well. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And build a bit of a strategy as well, I think. You know,
listen, how many businesses, realistically, if we had a vote on here, how many have got, before this, had a strategy?
Not many. Not in our industry. That's the key bit, isn't it?
And I think that's the thing. So I think, you know, I think the key is you've got to come, okay, exactly. Take the time to go, right, number one, how do we plan to do this? And number one, how are you going to get your customers back in? How are you going to recruit new customers? How are you going to do all...
Who are those customers as well? You know, who
Well, that was where I was going to
go on, Phil, yeah.
just come in and develop. So I developed a little model which in part shows my age a bit, but called Back to the Future for those of us who can go back that far to the mid-80s. And the essence of that is thinking ahead a year's time. So where's your business in a year's time? And let's imagine that you've bombed, you didn't achieve. So as a little exercise I've been running with a few of our existing network, getting them to think about what they wished they'd done that they hadn't done. And then we just remodel that and then think about what success looks like and what it was that we did to get success because we did. And that's been a really interesting exercise. So we're not as is now. We know that lots and lots of things are going to change. So it's less about reams and reams and reams of paper and strategy, which none of us really like. But it's actually a bit of a deep dive around what on earth, what does this feel like? What would I see? What would I be hearing? How would this really all bolt together? So that's kind of one thing. The strategy you've got now, or the strategy you had 6 months ago, even if it was in your head, needs to be very, very different, potentially, based upon your own geography, your own business size, funding streams, etc. It's the first one. Second and final bit for me is around your employees, your associates, whatever group of individuals you're working with in your network to drive business success. Each of them have been through unknown emotions and turmoil, either directly, indirectly, through relationships. So there could be, and there's likely to be, an element of fear, an element either in terms of how am I going to return to work and how can I do what I'm doing with what's happened to me in my life, or the people I'm treating, or how will my boss be? Do I have a job? What will happen? Andy's talking about, 10% of his client base will turn up in the first week. Does that mean I lose my job? So there's a whole piece around, as business owners, How are we managing? It's bad enough for us, so we're actually thinking, oh, I could do with a bit of that, a bit of TLC. But actually, how are we reintroducing our colleagues? How are we redeveloping those links? How are we giving them the tools, the comfort, the emotional connection they need to come in and do a really great job? So just turning up on day one, opening the locker and assuming everybody's going to be on song from day one is clearly not the way to do it. But somewhere in between, how are we thinking about that? What responsibilities do we have as business leaders to actually be supporting our colleagues back into the workplace?
Yeah, for sure. I think another thing, Andy, is for people who maybe didn't have a wide range of services offered within their business, I think now is a great time to start thinking about using your skill set and what else can we reintroduce that's, and I suppose it comes a little bit into that strategy as well and links it together a bit, doesn't it? But any thoughts?
Yeah, look, where my brain thinks is this: whatever there's challenges, you just need to find more solutions, don't you? And I think one of the things that we've got to accept is, we do not know what the world is going to look like in our industry when we return. Okay, we don't know how that's going to be. We don't know how long that trust is going to take to come back. Like we've sort of said before, how much will telehealth play in that? We don't know. So we've got to be innovative, and I think the idea is now is an opportunity to be innovative and creative, and not always follow what everyone else is doing. I think there's an opportunity for you to put your little spin on the world now, in the sense of, what skills have you got that you could do? And also it's, I think, the thing of, how do you, for those people who rely solely on this business for their income, what else could you be doing with that business or with your knowledge to do stuff, if that makes sense? Yeah. So I think there's lots of different ways, and I guess I'm very fortunate that when people have normal creative ideas, they ring me up and go, what do you think of this idea? And normally I turn around and go, I think that's bonkers, but I think you'll pull it off. But also, I guess it's that there's a reality of, especially if you have a level of specialism, if you have a particular, I've had lots of conversations with people, if you specialize in endurance or you specialize in strongman, whatever it is, your network isn't local anymore because the potential of the telehealth and the conversations that people have found successful, you can be doing well anywhere in the world, can't you? Yeah. So, you can be creative. I mean, I've known strength and conditioning guys who are friends of mine that have quit the memberships and gone straight into just doing all online coaching, but with guys who struggle with confidence. So he's found a massive niche, and in 8 weeks he's built a platform, built a program, filmed it all, got it live, and is now making the same amount of money that he did do a week in, week in, doing one-to-one sessions, but he's still in his front room. And that's all since he was locked down.
That's the key thing, about being diverse and about being adaptable. I've biggest sympathy throughout all this. Of course, been with everyone that's been affected in the industry and elsewhere, but particularly with like massage therapists, where 90% of their business might have been involving face-to-face contact and delivering, massage. And if 90% of your business is one modality that suddenly gets knocked out by, an infrequent global pandemic, but still, that really highlights the need for a bit of diversity, and having more than one income stream for your business, isn't it?
But I think I totally agree. But within the sports rehab remit, surely this is our bag, right?
Yeah.
We've been teaching people to move and getting people to exercise better, and we've been trying to do that, and we've been fighting the battle of going, you don't always need clicking, rubbing every single time you come in. We can just get you to load a bit more, and then they're telling, right, well, what do I load with? I'm at home. Put your kids on your back, put your backpack on your back, but be creative with your rehab. And, we've just we've just done a whole team training about queuing with a Pilates instructor this afternoon with our team. And, using different kinds of, looking at different things around the home that you can get people to do. And it makes you creative in your rehab as well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And that's, for me, that's a good teaching school. So I think most of us have all upskilled in our queuing and ability to coach and exercise because we're doing it via a video screen.
And there's loads of ways of delivering these kind of different things, whether it's rehab, whether it's Pilates, whether it's, some form of personal training, strength and conditioning, etc. We can do it face to face, we can do it via video like we're doing now. You can have pre-built programs and things like that. So even there'd be 3 different streams where not all 3 would be affected in the same way at the same time.
But and that's the way to do it, isn't it? I think, like, you can, there is, and I think the nice thing is that now people should have the headspace to be thinking as well, haven't they? It's quite, you talk about diversity, but if you are a massage therapist and you want to diverse, but the only way you can pay your bills and pay for extra courses is by spending hours after hours after hours rubbing people's legs, then you haven't got the time or the headspace to do that. Whereas now you kind of go, well, look, what opportunities do I have? And I guess it's how my brain always works. The minute we went into lockdown, we couldn't do that. My brain had to go, right, well, that's shut. I can't do anything about it. So where's my time and effort going to focus on? So that's where me and Phil went into pure entrepreneurial mode and went, right, we need to do this, and this, because we'll never have this amount of time where we can just crack on and do stuff without being disturbed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess to move the conversation on a bit and get the questions coming in, guys, because we've got 25 minutes left. So we really want to, if you've got specific questions about your business, and get them in, because I'm sure Andy and Phil will be happy to take them. I guess the post-COVID bit is more the bread and butter business fundamentals. What should people be doing? I know you talk about a customer journey a lot, don't you, Andy? That's that's a lot of what we talk about. Just run us through that. How should people be approaching this post-COVID and setting up their business for success?
I think, I think that, like we've kind of touched on a bit, I think it all starts now. I think fundamentally I think the nice thing is with COVID, you have to, I know we're going to touch on it very, very briefly, I promise you, but we have to think about all the health and safety measures that we have to put in place, right?
Yeah.
So at that point, we have to think about how a customer arrives, what a customer's going to do when they come to our clinic, what they need to do. So that whole experience is something I'm very passionate about, because you're then asking someone to come in to your business. You're going to do an assessment. You're going to tell them why they've got their injured, and then you're going to ask for some money, and you're going to ask them to keep returning. So the better we can make that experience at the start, the better that whole honesty and clarity and trust is very early on in the relationship. Normally, funnily enough, in our business, works out to a raving fan culture at the end, so everyone loves what we do, right? So what we've almost got is, at the moment in time, is a time where we can look at our business and think, right, like you've said, who was our ideal customer? Who are we looking to attract? Who do we like to work with?
That's the big thing.
Well, look, I'm excitable. I'm giddy, okay? So it's one of those things where, I'm very, very passionate about doing what I do, and I love people coming into clinic, just like now my transition. I love working with businesses that have got big goals and big ambitions, right? But I also love, and I love that about when people when you get an Iron Man says, right, look, my aim this year is I want to win the amateur section of it. Fantastic. What a goal. Let's do this, right? But I've got plantar fasciitis. No problem. Fantastic. We're on. But I also love that 90-year-old that goes, do you know what? I've got a bad back. I really want to feel confident doing shopping on my own. And then we end up getting them deadlifting and doing that mad stuff, right? At the same time, we can still do that, and you've got to understand, I think, what you enjoy doing and what you really, really, and then you go looking for those customers, if that makes sense. But then there has to be, I think, one of the also things is, and this is a massive point that we spend hours talking with businesses about, is, does the customer understand what your business does? So my question I'm going to throw out to everybody, because is here you go then. What do you sell?
I'll take responses to that in the chat or in the Q&A.
Right. So
to fire it in.
So I want to know, as a sports rehabilitator, what do you sell in your business? Because if you can't answer that question, how can you market your business?
Let's see what comes in.
Because that's the big key factor. So I think there's some big questions that people need to ask themselves, about that journey. Because if you don't know what you're about, if you don't know what you're focused on, then fundamentally you're very confused as a business. And so, you can't. So all you're going to do is return back to what you already knew. And I think that's a wasted opportunity for people that have got this time period now to refresh.
It's keeping it simple and keeping the message clear as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'll name drop him. That Mike James always says fancy websites are great, but all people want to know is, my name's Ollie. I'm a sport rehabilitator and I can help you with this. And that's it. That's all people really want to know.
And this is how I'm going to help you.
Yeah.
And by the way, that's going to require you doing some movement at some point.
Yeah.
And by the way, you're going to get homework. And by the way, I'm going to keep you accountable to you doing the homework. Because if you don't do it, you make me look bad, and that doesn't help my business. Go on.
Oh, that's a great question.
Go on.
Colm. So, can we have a quick chat about exit strategies when the point has come in your career where you want to sell up and move on? Wow, that's a biggie. Great question.
Okay. Good question, Colm. Okay. As in, I take it that question's diverted to selling?
Yeah, looks like it. It says sell up and move on.
Sell up. Okay. So fundamentally, we get a lot of these, right? And the reality is you've got to understand what your value of your business is. So the fact is, just because you're Rand and you're earning 40 grand and you're turning around and saying, I'm making 40,000, 50,000. I've read that your business is worth 2 to 3 times profit. Yeah. So I'm worth 150 grand. Actually, the fact is for me to buy that business. Okay. So if Ollie, you had that business, I had to come and buy that business off you. I take you out. I don't want to do that work. So I'm going to have to pay Phil 40 grand to do that work. So actually, if you're making 50 and I'm paying you 40, actually the business is worth 30 grand. So I think the reality is, so you've got to set a business up where, number one, it's not reliant upon you as a business owner to make money. Because fundamentally, you've then got nothing to buy. Does that make sense? So I think you've really got to think about it and then selling it, again, is a challenge. You've got to trying to find an investor that will prepared to come in and buy it. The quickest and easiest strategy, Colm, is employ somebody, kind of almost keep them through with they'll then take it over and buy it off you, which seems to be one of the best successful models that people have done. That they've brought somebody in with the intention that they'll take it over. But that could be, honestly, that's a webinar on its own, that one.
I think I agree with you. Just to add to that, one of the things we talked about very recently, Ollie, with a client was the database, customer database, and which in and of itself could have a value. But one of the things to think about is, particularly if you think about buying, is whose database it is, who owns it, how current it is, and how meaningful the data within that database is. Because we did have somebody we were talking to who thought they were looking at 3,000 clients, but actually they weren't looking at
8,000.
8,000 was it? Sorry, 8,000 clients. But they realised it wasn't really 8,000 clients because the database wasn't up to date. But actually, it wasn't even owned by the guy that was trying to sell it. So it's worth doing a bit of due diligence to find out. So I just add that dimension. So I'm sure Colm isn't in that position, but
no,
it's worth thinking about. Or if you are looking to put it together, make sure that that content has a value and is saleable. But then there's all lovely stuff like GDPR that comes in that says, well, can I give Andy's name to Ollie without actually asking Andy? And the answer is no.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
so there is that element of complexity.
So go on. I've just got one more thing. So I need to tell this story. So don't do so this is what happened. So we get involved because a lot of our customers come to us and go, I want to buy this business. What do you think? So that was where that came from. So we know, I get involved. I know investors that are buying businesses all the time in the physio industry, and I know what they're looking for. And that's the classic 101 is they want to know net profit if I was to take it on today, right? Not what the owner takes away. So, and also be honest with your accountant, because I'm not naming names, but I'll tell you this from a business that I bought that went one for the accountant, one for the pocket. Okay. So when I bought the business and I looked at the accounts, the business was worthless because what they were doing is we're taking 50% of the turnover out. Yeah. So they didn't have to pay any tax. So then I can only buy off what the books say. So the business is worthless. So actually I went in and bought it for a very, very low sum because that's what the accounts say. Does that make sense? Yeah. So if you are thinking of selling it, be honest and be have clarity.
I think my 2 pennies worth on databases is it's all well and good having customer contacts and being able to engage with that new database that you take on. But there's such a personal relationship involved in our industry that without the therapist in between, it's not really worth that much. Because it's all well and good saying to, Mary, Mary, there's some new people that are coming in, they're going to own the clinic, the business is going to continue, and, they'd love to keep you on as a customer. And Mary sat there going, well, I don't know them. Who are they? Am I going to like them? Am I going to be able to develop a relationship with them? The value isn't really just in the customer. They're not buying a coffee from you. It's very different, isn't it?
100%, and again, that was part of the conversation that we had with those guys. That was the fact that that they hadn't thought that, but they were like, how are these 8,000 people? And like we said, that was over a 10-year period. Well, John, who you saw 10 years ago, might have gone elsewhere by now as well, mightn't he? So there's numbers on for one thing.
I'm just reading Colin's response.
Yeah, I was just reading that too.
I kind of empathise with that, Colin. I think one of the things we did talk about, just briefly to add, Ollie, is that the individual that was thinking about trying to sell this business, when actually we talked to the guys that were thinking about buying it, and this is also worth potentially thinking about, is that you have a value. So you could be a really key influencer in your locality, and you may know all of the key players who are potentially any business is trying to market to. So actually there is another element, as Colin was kind of reflecting in his note there, which is you can personally have a value outside of the business. So part of the deal could actually be that, which is what happens in a lot of big deals, that you stay connected, or you stay in some way to influence and continue to send people towards the business, and you get some kind of side deal referral for the work that you continue to do with the extensive network of influencers that you have. So that's the other way of kind of thinking about how you position yourself on this.
Yeah, and I think that combined with Andy's suggestion as well of looking at bringing somebody in to take your business over, rather than just out and out selling and moving on, kind of phase it a little bit as well.
But I think again it comes down to strategy, all on it, in the sense of if you're looking to try and sell your business, then I think there's got to be a plan. So I just had a quick look. Then I've learned something. I know where the Q&A button is. I feel privileged. So one of the things is and his response in the sense of to buy the building, and I think that way again that's the other risk, isn't it? For me who built their business buying bankrupt physio clinics, let's put it that way, I'm now involved on the other end of helping investors who are buying up clinics, helping them and understanding what they want. Fundamentally, if you've got a build, because, let's say you buy a database and you buy a lease. Well, if there's only 12 months left in that lease,
Yeah.
Again, there's lots of different things. So I think there's got to be you've got to understand that end bit of going, right, how much do I want to get out of it? How do I make my business worth that and value that? And then almost work backwards, don't you? To go, actually, for me to be able to get that, I'm going to need a building to buy, or I'm going to have a long-term lease. I'm going to have some kind of replicable business.
Tim's hit the nail on the head as well. Clients buy the therapist, not the business. Yeah, absolutely. If you were going to put it into a sentence, that'd be it.
But again, I agree, and I'm not disagreeing with you, Tim. But what I'm saying is, if you do as a leader, now we're talking from a high level, if we get an organisation that we bring in therapists that customers like, that they buy into the brand. So, I've been very fortunate. I set off as a one-man band, and now I have a team of people that do my work. My customers are still just as happy to be seen by my staff as they are by me. So if I actually sold up and walked away, the team would still remain the same. Does that make sense? So I think if you're a single entity, I agree with that. But the idea then, you wouldn't, realistically, how much of a business do you sell? Because most of the profit you would be taking as your salary, if that makes sense. Yeah. So I think the factor is that, so my argument would be, if you want a business, and this is, again, one of those cheesy lines where if it's just you and you're working and you're earning 50, you've just got a good job, haven't you? At the end of the day, a business is, you take yourself 50 grand and you look in the bank account and still another 50 to go, oh, cool, nice one. Because your staff have earned it for you. Yeah.
In the absence of any questions, Andy, then it's probably another one. In fact, I'll throw it to both of you, but we could do a whole webinar on it.
Cool.
Lead generation, because this is going to be big post-COVID when people get back going. Top tips or, effective methods, just because we've talked loads about this, and we actually changed our business quite significantly in terms of how we tried to get new customers in by running educational events, and that's now our primary source. But just
good idea, that.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I wonder who came up with that.
It was a mutual discussion. It was
over a very good coffee.
It was a good coffee, yeah.
Throw a couple of ideas out there for people that will get them starting to think, get things starting to tick over about what they could do to generate new business.
Okay, so let's throw out then, be controversial. Spending hours and hours and hours posting on Instagram is not the way forward.
Sorry.
Okay. Sorry, it doesn't, and it's one of those things. So the realities are, if you're going to spend your time, so one of the things we promote is you go after influencers rather than individuals. So the idea is you either turn yourself into an influencer, what you did, in the sense of, there's a big market, I can really be helpful. Why don't we put them all bums on seats, give them some free content about why they're running and how they can run faster, show them how they can run faster and go, oh, cool, let's buy a space. Or, go after the influencers. Who are the people in your industry round about you that actually you can be working with? You're working with the same customer, but also it comes back to what customers you want to work with. So I'll give you my great example. I can go up to a personal trainer and go, I can make you look phenomenal. Why? Because what we do know is all personal trainers will, all stereotype. A lot of personal trainers, personal trainer market, what they will do is they will listen to their client and go, I want to lose weight in 12 weeks. So they'll push them really, really hard. And we all know that what happens is, as you start to get somebody fitter, there might be a muscle imbalance they've not assessed. But as they get to that point, they start to get those little niggles, those little pains, right? People do two things. They either stop training or they do the classic thing is, well, if your shoulder hurts, we'll just do lower body. So they're not now getting what they want. So what I can then do is go in and go, look, have you got any customers that when you get them to a point, keep breaking down and getting injured all the time? They've always got shoulder impingement, lower back. They've always, right, well, look, why don't we set up a relationship where every one of those you send us in, and I'll tell you what we do. So we just say, look, send them in, give them a free assessment, 15-minute free assessment. And our guys, we train our team how to do a 15-minute free assessment and then tell them, there's some really good advice or convert them into a customer. Okay. So we've now got somebody who sees 30 to 40 people a week. Every time someone's got a niggle, just go and see them. Right. So if I can replicate that model with 10 personal trainers in and around my area, right. And it costs me what, £3 for a coffee to go and have a chat and say, oh, by the way, And then what I then do is I then go, as long as my client is happy to do so, then I will then communicate with the PT and say, look, in my opinion, this is how we reload them, bum, 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 right? And I almost have that conversation. We have that strategy. So we've got a good relationship with the PT. Every time they get a niggle, they send them to us, okay? Well, we can do that with local running coaches. We recently, in the lockdown, had a big relationship with the swimming club, where basically they've got a massive junior thing. And so we do education seminars for the swimming club. Golf professionals, which is my research is in. But again, it's one of those things where, all those kind of things. So go after influencers, people that are in your market that are working with the same customer, but you're non-competitive. And personal trainers is a classic, or strength and conditioning. Number 2, you have to spend money. Sorry. Marketing's about investment. Marketing is about investment, right? Now, the only reason you then going back to my customer journey and money, if you understand a customer journey in your business, all the touch points, and you understand that what your average customer length is, so what I say is from IC plus how many as an average, because everyone's different in it. Some people only need 2 sessions, some need 10, an ACL rehab might need 30, right? So if you kind of understand your average journey length, you can almost predict your average income from per customer. You happy with that? So then if you don't know your overheads, you can then go, right, I know my average profit margin per customer. So once you know that detail, you can then go to someone and do it like a Google Ads campaign. So am I allowed to name drop on here?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so we work very closely with Michael Schumacher of Physio Digital. And at the moment in time, okay, he's running, I'm sure you won't mind me, for some physio business, he's running a Google ad for £13 for a new customer.
Right.
Now,
that's really good, by the way.
Right. So exactly. Well, you understand this, but that's what I'm saying. So let's give an example for the audience out there. Say you're making 100 quid from a customer journey. So it might be over 8 weeks, whatever, as an average. This just makes math simple. That's like saying, I'll give you £13 if you give me 100.
Deal.
The math is there. The difference is you've got to understand the math of your journey, and then the risk of marketing's less. And also, you pay somebody that does this day in, day out. It's not you going, oh, wonder what the best keyword to get endurance runners in stock, or wonder what the best. Do you know what I mean? So again, you can be doing the stuff that you can do really, really well, like looking after your customers or communicating with your staff and doing those kind of things. So I think, on a budget, go and have coffee with people when you're allowed to sit face to face, or what I do now, but have virtual coffees.
Yeah.
That's the big things. Write a list, and we actually do this as part of our workshop when we do it, is make everyone go, right, find 10 people who, when you've done look to your perfect customer, find 10 people in your area that you don't know that are dealing with your ideal customer, and go and invite them for a coffee. And I was actually having a coffee with a physio in Bolton, and he went, oh yeah, I don't know. By the time he got to come back, and I went, there you are, found her details on Instagram, message her. What am I messaging her? To say, hi, yeah, I've seen you, you're looking at our ideal client, I think I can make you look brilliant.
Yeah. Colin was just throwing some comments in, agreeing with you. I 100% agree. Well, and the term we used when we discussed this as well, because we try and work with endurance coaches, was make a non-threatening approach. You're not going after other people's businesses. You're trying to build a mutually beneficial relationship. It needs to be a non-threatening approach.
But they're all in business, and I think that's the key thing isn't it? And, one of the lovely things that's happened, like lectures, like everyone's trying to help each other.
Yeah.
And I think what we've learned from this is, and, one of the things that I hope we get more of, being in this industry nearly 20 years, I know it's hard to tell, but one of the things is that, when I set out my private practice, no private practice owner would talk to each other. They wouldn't sit next to each other because, like, oh God, your competition, you're down the road from me, right? Oh my God. you're going to steal my business. Whereas I think now I think people are more open. So my suggestion would be also with, especially you guys as an organization, is share what works. You know, come together and share what works with people.
Yeah. Alison, you're looking for Michael Schumacher at Physio Digital.
Oh yeah.
Just get that one out of the way. Right, we are getting on for time, Andy. Could you take?
Nicely done, Ollie. I was going to say, how many minutes have we got left?
We can we can keep rolling. It's just it's sunny out and don't want to stay this afternoon.
No, I was thinking you could kind of add. I was just looking at Claire and Zoe's questions, so you could answer them in half an hour, or you could answer them in a minute.
Let's answer them in a minute. Go on, Phil. Have a go.
Yeah. So I was going to say if do Zoe first. Zoe, I think the key is to be clear about why you're setting up the business and what you're trying to achieve. It sounds a bit pat and a bit glib, but so many of us have stumbled into doing something without necessarily thinking about what am I really trying to achieve here? Where do I want to be? What's my purpose? How am I going to get there? So that's where we spend quite a bit of time actually talking to people around that, usually after 3 years after they've actually started. And Claire, I think just looking at Claire's, a lot of the commentary Andy was making around kind of understanding the marketing mix and your £13 to 100. I think being clear about the level of demand you've got within your business and actually how you're growing your business will dictate your capacity. So let's imagine it's just you in the business. There are only so many appointments, so many hours in the day. So what actually are you trying to grow, or what market is there? And then what level of demand have you got? And therefore, is it better to employ somebody to work to associate with somebody to test the market out, and then kind of grow as a consequence of that? So I think the answer is it depends, but you need to be clear in your head about what it is you're trying to achieve in terms of business growth. And
so Claire, just to kind of, I just read that question, so and I agree with that, and I think that I would also argue that it all depends on what support you think you need, because an associate would obviously come in and be a part of the business, whereas self-employed will play with your rules, if that makes sense. Is that fair to say? So it's also one of the things where do you want the power to sit? You know, because, you know, at the end of the day, if you've, like Phil said brilliantly, you know, if you're going to spend all this time creating this vision around a business and you've put that together, and like Phil says, most people don't even know that after 3 years. But if you've spent this time and effort creating that vision and you're very passionate about that, you know, I know Ollie and his team, and I know we're very passionate about what we believe in, how that brand should be, then I would always go down the kind of coming under your brand rather than bringing somebody in, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Danny, I'm going to partly answer that.
What's the question?
So how a method for working out average patient value. It's a really, really hard one. Firstly, I mean, get a system that would
get a CRM system, number one.
Would be the answer. In short, there are loads out there. I think otherwise it's a manual process, isn't it, of kind of looking back through previous patients that you've seen, average number of sessions, you know, work it out for each type or category of patient that you've got, and then go from there.
I mean, if you've got enough data, then you can, you know, the simplest way, if you've got enough data, if you would take 12 months worth of data, you can take how many appointments you've got and how many new customers you've got, and that will give you a rough average. The problem is what people don't do is, you know, and what we do is when you also do it from discharge. So as long as you make sure on your CRM, so number one, get a CRM. Please tell me no one's still on diary management and paper after all the technology that we've got these days, okay? Especially because we want to drive everyone to online booking, okay? Make it as easy as possible. But as long as that you set up every new customer with an appointment and you discharge them at the end, then the CRM will actually record the journey, so you can actually track that very, very easily. But there's a few little administratory things you just need to be very good at.
Yeah, 100%. Cool. There we go. Thanks for that, Danny, and I hope you're well, mate. We know Danny well. He's actually up in your neck of the woods.
He is over the road from us, yeah.
Yeah.
Very familiar with him. Don't worry. Hi, Dan.
Cool. That looks like it for
Cool.
today. So thank you both very much for
Thank you very much for having us.
For your advice. It's been a great chat. Nice to have you with us as well, Phil.
Nice to be here, Ollie. Thanks for the invite.
Really
I've
appreciate it.
enjoyed it and hope that everybody's taken some value away from the session.
Yeah. If people want to find out more about you, and about Elevate, where can they find you?
So you can go to. So we've got to be totally honest. During this time, so a little bit of it off the press. We are creating something quite big in the background. So I might as well just get it out there now while I've got an opportunity in an audience. While participants are still in the room, quickly. So what we've created. So the Elevate group, you can still elevateyourclinic.com or Andy at elevateyourclinic.com. You can contact me whenever you want. We do our little group chats especially in this moment in time, we're doing our group chats every other Thursday. So if anyone of your members, Ollie, more than welcome to join us. And again, it's just a load of business owners that are throwing some ideas about. But so you can find us for that. We're going to be at Therapy Live. Me and Phil, we'll be there. We'll be chatting. We've got 3 presentations between us. So and we've got a stand. So if people want to come and have a chat with us virtually there. And then thirdly, what we've done is, so the guys like this who have been questions about setting up and starting up, me and Phil are working absolutely frantically behind the scenes we are going to create the biggest resource business site for therapists that is so very much what the guys have been doing with learning platforms of clinical education. We are building the same thing for business for therapists. So we are going to have a resource site, which is going to be phenomenally affordable, i.e. very cheap for everybody. But basically it's going to be the place to find any business advice. We will be creating enough content that at any level of business, we're going to have a one-stop shop. So
yeah. And having worked with you as well, to be able to get access to that in the way that people will be able to is a phenomenal step forward as well.
Well, for me, it's one of those things. Look, I think people are very passionate about their professions and their business, and it's always been a massive frustration to me that no one understands the industry. And one of the things is, me and Phil work on one-to-one with businesses, but let's be totally honest, it's a luxury that lots have if they've got the can affordability to do so. So the idea is what we're looking to do is all that great advice we can do, we can scale it down so everybody can have access to it, so that everyone can have that good information. And we've got employment lawyers who are writing the content. So it's not me and Phil saying that what do you need an employment contract. We've got top employment lawyers in Manchester who are writing, this is what you need. So we're bringing in the best people to give the best advice and partnering up with the best people so that everyone can safely and confidently do things in their business, knowing that they're doing the right stuff, but also they're safe and they're not going to be beaten down the line.
Yeah. Awesome.
Thanks very much.
Right. We're going to wrap it up.
Appreciate it.
I want to get back out in the sun. There's a coffee going to be waiting for me, I think.
It's past 4 o'clock, Al.
I know. I can't wait for us to catch up as well. Andy, we'll chat virtually at Therapy Live, and hopefully once this is all blown over, we'll catch up over a drink.
I'll come and have a game of tennis.
Yeah, something like that. Cool. Thanks, gents. Thanks for joining us. And we'll carry on the conversation over on social media. If anyone wants to come and find us, you can find me on Twitter at Ollie Coburn GSR or at BASRaT.org. You'll find us, and we'll see you over there.